about when you started keto. What were some of the swaps that you made to get into it and help make it easier to kind of start this whole diet? A lot of people can find it very overwhelming, and like the idea of switching out their entire pantry or fridge might seem scary. What did you do to get started in this?
I think that's one of the things that's important to address up front, is that everything doesn't have to happen overnight, but the big things can. And I think for me, anytime somebody has come to me and they said, I feel like I'm researching keto, I'm trying to figure it all out, I've gotten the macro calculator downloaded, and I've read 2 or 3 books, and I've followed a bunch of people on YouTube and whatnot, and they're trying to figure out how to do all of the things. They're trying to figure out how to count calories for the first time and understand how macronutrients work and all these incredible things that do help along the journey, that do make things easier eventually. One thing that I tell people day one, and this might sound like a silly one, as I say, for the first week, start by giving up white food. And when I say that, I mean sugar, flour, rice, pasta, bread, etc. And I was like, give up white food. And I was like, so keep it really, really simple. Every single meal, all 3 meals of the day, pick a protein, add a fat, and if you want to add a veggie that grows above the ground, and cauliflower, it's like the white food you can have, a veggie that grows above the ground, and if you want to do a few berries, do those. The other things that are great are things like eggs and cheese and cream. So little things, I think, along the way, that realizing that the fats can be cheese, they can be cream, they don't have to necessarily be butter or oil. But when you do the oils, same thing. I say people, really, really easy. If the bottle is clear and plastic, if sun can hit it, it's not the oil for you. So that includes veggie oils, seed oils, canola oil, that sort of thing. And so do the avocado oil, do the extra virgin olive oil, and keep your food really, really simple. Things that you can make in 15 minutes or less. I could not have done this with, all these kids running around my feet, with you in and out, starting businesses, doing crazy stuff with our lives, without being able to make my meals in like 10 to 15 minutes. So literally,
we didn't necessarily prep everything.
Oh no, we are not.
We weren't trying to get prepared for a whole week at a time. We kind of took it day by day.
Yeah, y'all, we are not the most prepared of people. The people that do it all on Sunday and put it all together, I am like amazed. I am blown away by that. I am literally like, oh shoot, I have 10 minutes I can eat right now. I've got to throw something together. And so the air fryer became my best friend. That was a big part of it. And I literally was like, all right, what's the protein? And I just have, and I still do to this day. Now it's they're bigger packs, much bigger packs now that all 7 of us eat this way. But when it was just me, I had just stacks of fresh meats, fresh proteins. So chicken breast and a couple steaks and some pork chops. And I mean,
at one point you had a bag of scallops that you would pull out and do a couple of scallops.
Yes, I had frozen scallops. Frozen shrimp, I would throw those and just boil them up real quick. All sorts of stuff, but I just had really, really, really easy proteins. And I had tons and tons of frozen bagged vegetables. Y'all, we're not purists. If you're on here and you are here to tell me how I need to buy farm fresh, organic, we're not the ones. We're not the ones. Not because we don't want to, not that we haven't worked into more and more and more and more of maybe the best choices, optimal choices. Yeah. But at that point, it was what was the easiest choices. How did I make this easy? And so it was a lot of frozen vegetables that literally I would pop the steam fresh vegetable in the microwave, and when it came out, I would throw cheese or cream or seasonings or whatever it might be on there and make it delicious and add it to my protein, get through that and move along with my life. I think that the interesting part of this is that we're bringing up what the food is. What's the food? How do we do the food? How do we make sure we're eating the right foods? And you probably came here for that answer. And I think that the important part of it is why is it so hard to change these foods? What is it that I was attached to with the foods that I was letting go of? What kinds of emotions and feelings that I have with kind of releasing some of those things? And I think, when I got strict, and it really was a very strict journey for me for quite a while. When I got really tight, I was weighing and measuring my food. I was putting them into my macro calculators eventually. I was figuring all that part out in order to get optimal results. I kind of became like my own human science experiment. But when I did that, there was a lot of outside chatter. Just lots of voices in my ear saying, Mary, it just feels like, this is really, food's really got, extreme. It's got a lot of control of you. It feels like you're, really almost obsessed, or, I just didn't do the things. When people are like, you can have a little bit, I'm like, no, I don't. And they're
This was
you
at family events or,
oh
or
my goodness,
picnics, or we'd go out with friends.
get-togethers.
Right.
Yes, and there was lots of like, you don't have to be, so controlled by this. And I had to like stop and eventually say, this is the first time in my life I've been in control of food and it wasn't in control of me. I had dealt with, when I look at kind of my entire lifelong journey with food, I had dealt with food addiction since I was a child. I was shoveling food and hiding food and sneaking food and crying in the closet thinking somebody was gonna find out that I had eaten all the things, or in the bathroom and had gotten in trouble for eating all the things.
Or turning to food at every emotional event.
Oh my gosh. And it's, I'm just going through it and going, food controlled me my whole life. It was what I thought about constantly. It was what my next meal was gonna be all the time. It was what I was gonna get to eat next all the time. It became something that I felt very, very guilty and ashamed that I loved food as much as I do. Y'all, like I am the person now that's like, we love food. I love to eat. I love to cook. I love to have community with my family and with my friends. I love food, but food controlled me for 20 something years. And actually I look at even some of the memories that have been pulled recently as we've kind of dug a little further back into childhood. It's kind of like, I know that this event kind of caused a cascade failure. But when I look at pictures of my very, very, very plus size, overweight childhood frame, and I think of the things that I remember experiencing, or I say things out loud, and I realize that even like my siblings didn't have the same experience with food, or weren't eating the same things, or don't remember sneaking stuff and then getting in trouble and crying or whatever, but they weren't doing that. Food didn't control them. They literally don't relate to that experience because it was mine and mine alone. And I think that for me, it's really, really important to say, when I got tight and when I got strict, I got control. And through that control, I found food freedom. And all of a sudden, food was no longer the bad guy. And I think that that was a big part of it too, is I hated myself for loving food. So I blamed food. If only I could not love it so much. If only I could not have these cravings. If only, food didn't taste so delicious. If I could take a pill or I could sprinkle stuff on the food to make me not want it or to not crave it.
Did that ever work? Did it really ever affect anything lasting?
Oh, never once. No, I did this so many times. If you had a diet plan, if you had a pill box, if you had a shake mix, if you had a cleanse, I have bought it. And what's harder, thinking about it, and I love my family and they've been good to me and they've taken care of me and they did what they could trying to help me through childhood obesity and young adult obesity and eventually adult obesity, just dealing with the weight gain that continued to happen. It was like, I got you this cleanse and it was very expensive. Maybe it could be part of your birthday present. Or I got you a gym membership for Christmas. And it was very much so that my body and what I ate was part of the conversation around me. And I realized that it was part of the conversation around me. I realized that people were talking about me going up and getting that second or third plate, that it was a worry and a stress for the people who loved me that I was getting so out of control in my body and that food had such a handle on me. And so when people ask about the apps and the tracking and the calorie counting and all those things, my question becomes, are you ready for taking control of food in that way? If that's going to be a toxic tool for you, it's not a tool for you. If it's going to be a triggering tool for you, if weighing and measuring your food makes you feel overwhelmed and stressed, it's not for you. If cutting down your eating window and doing intermittent fasting doesn't make you feel good and like you have your body recharge and you're giving it a break and it feels like a positive thing and you love the euphoric feelings of kind of getting into ketosis at that level and you really like eating in a tight window, but you feel like you're restricting or punishing or you're in trouble for, or you use it as a way to
shame yourself,
yeah, to undo mistakes that you made as an adult about food. You're an adult with food. And so
we changed our language almost immediately.
Yes.
With our kids, they're like, oh, can mommy have this? And so, well, yes, absolutely. She could have it. She's choosing not to today.
And
was the language we started using pretty early on. So we didn't introduce we didn't want your journey to be a reflection of shame for them as they watch through it. We've tried to really make it a positive thing, that You're
Yes.
making choices so that they can make choices.
Absolutely. And restricting or giving up certain foods for a while felt that way. And so there was a time I could not track and I could not weigh and I could not measure. I had to just go, okay, I'm just going to pick a protein. Okay, I'm just going to add a fat. Okay, I'm just going to add a vegetable that grows above the ground. And that's how I ate all the time until I said, I have control here. I have control of what's happening, and food doesn't control me for the first time in 25, 30 years. And then I was able to take control by getting purposeful with my decisions. And that's when the macros came in. That's when the apps came in. That's when intermittent fasting
We
went from
really
being
needed support of like, okay, I'm in control, but now how can I make this efficient? How can I actually reach my goals?
yes.
There was, by the time you started doing that, I mean, it was 2 years in. I think it was a
yes.
good while.
I did not do it at all in the first journey.
Right.
There was no carb manager for me those first 60 pounds. And for those of you who are new to us, I lost 60 pounds in 9 months and then came home from a trip in an RV trip and found out that I was pregnant. And 6 months into that pregnancy, found out that I was pregnant with twins. So I did my keto pregnancy and my keto twins. They came out, and 3 months after they were born, I went back to keto and had to start from scratch. I left the hospital at my starting weight from 9 months before the pregnancy. And so it was one of those things where I really had to think and be purposeful about, how am I representing this to my kids? What kinds of things am I saying out loud to a family of 5, to 5 very, impressionable ears? And you're right, that language was a really big part of it, where it was never I can't or I don't get to. It was I'm choosing not to, because mommy loves feeling good with you. Mommy loves being able to be on the floor without her knees hurting. Mommy loves being able to sit in the swing next to you. And so mommy's choosing to do these things because it's these foods that I'm choosing make my body feel so good. And I love food. Don't you love food? Like, isn't it delicious? I mean, look at the food I get to eat. This isn't mommy can't. Mommy eating a ribeye and cheesy broccoli or bacon wrapped asparagus.
Lemon drizzled salmon.
That's not mommy not getting to.
Yeah.
That's mommy getting to. I get to choose that, and I get to purchase that, and I get to put that in my body because I get to have this life that I get to have with you. And so when people come for that answer, when people come with that question, how do
what do I eat?
What do I eat?
What do I put in? Just give me. They just want they want the boundaries and the guidelines, and I think it's been so much more than that for you.
And the boundaries and the guidelines change. You've got to kind of start where you can start. And for me, it really is like I had to start with, okay, I have this wide array of things that I can do. And then I tightened up and I tightened up and I tightened up and I tightened up until I kind of found what worked for me. The worst thing in the whole world was trying to do what everyone else was doing, was trying to look at the keto meal plans and say, maybe I could be a prepper. I'm not. Maybe I can, do this, in these big batches. I can't. Maybe I can follow this really strict meal plan. No, if there's asparagus in the fridge, that's what I'm going to eat. I'm not going to go out and get broccoli just because the meal plan calls for broccoli. I've got 5 kids at home. Maybe if I was single, maybe if I was doing this on my own.
We've had to learn to be flexible. We
The
open the fridge and
yes.
we got 5 of them screaming, and we can't go to the store and just do a big shopping.
No,
we gotta throw
we go.
together
What do we
what's
got
in
together?
there.
And we
Yeah.
do. We like team up on it now. And so
It's
the
like
way,
a game. Like we're like on our own personal Chopped, right?
It is. Like, here's all the ingredients you have right now. The best part is
put it together.
you just got back from a trip. You have like 4 things. What can you make?
Right.
And it really is. Chopped was, we did that a couple times where we literally watched Chopped upstairs. And
How
I
we
was
do
like,
this.
all right, let's see what we can do. And Andy would throw some ingredients down and say, what can you make?
Not all of them turned out good.
No,
It's
not
definitely
bad.
not.
It's not
It's
much
been a journey.
bad.
Yeah.
But the easier and simpler I've made it, and there's days that I literally still have to say to myself, pick a protein, add a fat, add a vegetable that grows above the ground, and you're good. If you want to throw some berries in there, throw some berries in there. Throw some eggs in there, throw some cheese in there, throw some cream on some stuff. I'm somebody who can do dairy. I mean, there might come a time that I say, for me, I'm going to cut that out and see what happens. Today is not that day. I enjoy that. And so for me, it's been where I did get to say, cheese and cream and all those things were part of those fats, but I had to keep it that simple. And so if you're sitting there going, I feel like I need to know all the things, or how to put it together, or how to make the perfect plate, or how to make my macros all come together, and you haven't just been able to let go of the foods that have controlled you your whole life, let's start there. Let's start with getting in control of the process. Let's start with not letting food have that handle on us before we try and control the macronutrients, before we try and control every single calorie.
Calories, yeah.
Let's take back that control in the beginning, because the food freedom comes from sometimes what we have to let go of. it's what we gain. And for me, it really has been gaining so much life, gaining so much love of food again, you know, an allyship with it in a way that I didn't have for so long.
We didn't eat good food before. It wasn't as good as it is now.
No, it was cheap.
Yeah,
It was
it was
not.
It was bad.
It was not good.
It didn't even taste good.
No, it was just cardboardy, basic. I mean, if you were to force some of that down my throat now, I'd be like, excuse me, sir. I had jumbo prawns tonight and scallops in butter and a ribeye. This is not gonna fly. Like it's just.
And I mean, and I think we'll do a video on the cost of things, but I think we find we're not snacking as much. Our kids aren't snacking as much. Abby from House of Keto made this point this weekend.
We've heard this talk twice, and it resonated because we feel like we've had to justify our food costs a lot. And I'm like, I don't think you understand
the expense of snacking.
We're not hungry the first 4 or 5 hours of the day.
Yeah.
And
our kids can go hours before they tell us that they're hungry.
Before they're ready.
Before
they
they're
get
ready
up
for
and
food.
going, and
we can have it available, and they'll just go. They're living on energy, and it's because we've got good quality foods now.
Yeah.
And we don't have a bunch of junk snacks that are empty calories and don't actually satiate.
And I think that that's a good question for another time is how we've had to kind of identify that food times don't work for our family. So there's a reason for that. There is some flexibility that we have, but there's all sorts of things that really go along with this conversation. But first and foremost, the what you eat, man, just start with what you can start with. Do something day one.
You'll notice a difference. I think most people don't have to do it 100% right. If they did.
Oh my gosh, all the things that I know I did wrong now, all the things that I was like, oh, this is totally keto friendly. And then I looked or put it into Carb Manager 2 years later.
Something later.
2 years later would be like, oh, and I was like, I drank that iced coffee
daily.
And it has 30 carbs in it. I'm going, it's black iced coffee. No, it's not. It's from a mix and a package and it has 30 carbs in it. Yeah. Like all these things that I did that I learned later made me just kind of go, I didn't need to know everything, but I needed to know the first thing and do the first thing. And then I would learn the second thing and I could add in the second thing. And so if you're sitting there and you're Googling or you've shown up on YouTube because you're going, what can I eat on the keto diet? Start simple. Give up those white foods this week.
So give it
next week.
Give it to us again, the 3 things that you said. Start with a protein.
Pick a protein every meal. Add a fat. Add a vegetable that grows above the ground if you feel up to it, if you feel like it. I think that in the beginning, I don't eat a ton of vegetables now. I'm pretty carnivore heavy, I guess is what I would call it. But in the beginning, those vegetables kept me full. And so the people who are like purists, that same thing, are like, you need to go, you can only have these 4 items, or you can go all in on being carnivore day one. I can ham on meat. Like I can take out a couple pounds of meat in a sitting. I needed all those veggies at that time, the salads, the broccoli, the asparagus, the Brussels sprouts, the cauliflower, look, I'm listening, like you're hungry, right? Like this is good food. And I covered it in cheese and we cooked it in bacon grease and we chopped bacon up into the Brussels sprouts. All of that, adding those vegetables in the beginning with those fats kept me full. So all of a sudden I went, I've never not been hungry and thinking about the next meal my whole life. And a couple weeks into this, all of a sudden I went, I'm not really hungry in the morning. And then I went, I'm really not thinking about the next meal all the time. I'm just able to open the fridge, throw some stuff together and move on with my life. It didn't become this huge staple of oh my gosh, this. And I think that that's one more thing. Sorry. I think, when I remember all the people who are like, it feels like you're obsessed, or it feels like this is too much, or you're too into it, or this is, you're really all or nothing or whatever. And I was like, I don't think you realize how much mental space has been freed up in my brain, not obsessing over food all the time. And I think that if I were to replay my thoughts and think about how I thought all through my teens and 20s, where I was constantly trying to figure out how to get that fix, and that's what I'll call it, really where am I going to get that next hit of dopamine utilizing food? When I think of the space that was created to be present, to be able to raise my babies, to be able to reach out and make a community of friends where I was able to invest in time and energy for me. I didn't self-care. I didn't even do the basics of beauty regimen at that point. I had really let go of a lot of things, and a lot of things that took focus and energy because I didn't have energy. I was running on sludge. There was no gasoline in the tank. It was just sludge at that point. But I was running on so little, but my mental space was just filled with the idea of food all the time. When that was all removed, when it was cleared away and all of a sudden food became fuel, food became something that could be fun and it could be celebratory, but most of the time it was just food for the first time ever, all of that space was cleared. And all of those roots of the addiction and the obsession and the
shame.
And the
relationships that came along with that
were ripped out.
Yeah.
Like it was pulled up by the roots, and I got to decide what I wanted to plant there. And from being given that space and that fertile ground to grow something new, I didn't pick an obsession with food again to replant. I picked meeting our keto friends. I picked the adventure mom life, which we will have to talk about in a video. I picked raising the kids in a way that I'd always wanted to be raised about and with food. I picked the relationship that I got to have and be purposeful with you. And I think all the things that started to fill my time and my energy and my space let me start a keto Instagram, let me help launch a keto magazine, let me get led from that into the keto clubhouse space and fall in love with speaking on keto stuff full time. And for about a year, that was a big part of my life, as I got to talk about not the food, but the thinking behind changing my relationship with the food and the mindset around changing my relationship with my body and my body's ability to communicate with both my mind and my stomach in a new way. And all these things that I had to unpack, I got to unpack out loud because I wasn't thinking about what I was going to eat next. I was thinking about why I'd always eaten it.
Or trying not to eat because you didn't feel like you couldn't trust yourself.
Yeah.
You have a trust about yourself now
Yeah.
with food that was not there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, that's a good place to stop, because I think that we could get into a whole lot of other answers on how I feel about some of this.
So
but
pick a protein.
Pick a protein.
Yep.
Add a fat.
Add a fat.
Eat a veggie that grows above the ground. And your protein can include eggs. Your fats can include the creams and the cheeses and the cream cheeses.
Coconut oil. We did coconut oil.
We did lots of coconut oil, did lots of ghee, butter, avocado oil, olive oil, simple stuff. Vegetables that go above the ground that are green, plus cauliflower. That's your white food now. That's the connection there. And really, really, really keep it simple for a while. Don't add the keto treats. Don't add the snacks. Don't add the stuff in a package. Don't try and start making sweets. Don't try and stevia and swerve everything. Y'all, I enjoy dessert. I enjoy dessert. There was a point, though, that I literally added into my macronutrients as things went on, a half of a Quest cookie. And it was just part of, I put it in first, but I knew that I couldn't just go ham with it. I couldn't just let myself do whatever. And I think that sometimes those things are as much of a hindrance as anything else. I had to pay attention when I started tracking of the things that made me crave other things, the things that were clean, the things that were safe, the things that were keto friendly, no, not for me. They triggered a response in me that made me want more of XYZ. And all of a sudden, my peanut butter cup Reese's addiction was peanut butter, keto friendly peanut butter cups. All of a sudden, my, desire for something warm and baked was heating up in the microwave the stuff that was in the packages to make it feel like that. It was what I was getting emotionally. Jonathan Shane said something. So Jonathan Shane is the Keto Road. If you don't follow him on all social media platforms, he's on everything. He's become a dear friend of ours. Both you and I have, been able to connect with him on everything from business to life to parenting to marriage to, all of it. He is a dear, dear, dear friend of ours. And he said something really important at the Keto Orlando Summit that we were just at this weekend. What he said, you can still be addicted to all the keto treats because you weren't addicted to the sugar, you were addicted to the brownie. And that hit me this weekend because I realized I did a lot of those swaps and trades and whatever, and it was the emotional response of the baked good or of how I felt getting to have, if I was in my cycle, or I was overwhelmed, or I was crying, or I got my feelings hurt, to sit and eat the keto brownie with the keto ice cream on top while crying, still the same process, still the same addiction, still the same crutch. And so being able to also separate those out and saying, one of the things that Abby said too, so we're gonna keep referencing our friends. If you're not following our friends, follow our friends. Abby, House of Keto, said, what did I just say? The sweets.
Yes.
She said she has rules in her house. Y'all, I appreciate y'all. She she said that in her house, one of the rules is meats before treats. And I was like, how simple and how effective is that? Because I remember days that I started with something sweet, or I started with the keto cinnamon roll, or I started with the keto pancakes.
On a snowball.
And I'm going,
effect.
I can eat 3 or 4 pancakes if that's what I eat first. If I start with the bacon and the eggs and the ham, I might eat 1 keto pancake, and that's a whole different process. And so I think more than anything about what you eat is to pay attention to why you eat what you eat, why it's hard to let go of the things that you're letting go of, what kinds of responses you have when you do the certain foods.
Emotional and physical.
Emotional and physical. How your sleep is, how you feel the next day, whether or not it makes you groggy. And you know, there's inflammation and bloating and all those sugar alcohols can do all that to me. So all those things that even if it's safe, even if somebody else is able to do that in their journey, it might not work for you. I can pretty close to guarantee to my friends though, if you get simple with the foods, if they're simple ingredient foods, that means whole foods, and you keep it that way for a while and you don't let yourself add in all the other extras and the stuff, it's simple to get started and you don't have to know everything you feel like you need to know to start day one. And you can do it. We know you can.
We do. We've done it. You can.